Hello to everyone. Today I have the pleasure of letting a group of fierce students, better known as the FTI Tigers, talk a little bit about themselves. And the reason I selected them is because we this year decided to feature Latino leaders from the past, the present, and the future. And I know with the talent that the Tigers have, they will be the leaders of the future. So I will let them talk a little bit about themselves, what their passions are, and what type of leaders they want to be in the future. And I'd like to begin the conversation with Fiorenza.
Hola, Sarita. Thank you. It's an honor to be here. So a little bit about myself. My name is Fiorenza Herrera Diaz. I'm currently in graduate school at Syracuse University, and I'm doing their dual master's program in public administration and international relations.
Why did you go into that field?
Say that again, I'm sorry?
Why did you go into that field?
At its core, because I want to help people and I want to advocate for those who are marginalized and continue to be silenced. And I think that this degree is what's going to give me the tools and the knowledge that I need to get a career in that area.
Great. Now I'd like to have Gabriela Hernandez talk about herself, give us some information about yourself, and let's see what you have to say.
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me, Sarita. I go to Swarthmore College. I'm Gabriela Hernandez. I'm a student at Swarthmore College. I'm a senior. I did come from a community college background at Miami-Dade College in Miami. Thankfully, that program allowed me the opportunity to transfer to a four-year institution where I'm currently studying poli-sci, political science, with a global studies minor. I went into this field mainly because of my background. I grew up in a communist country, Cuba, and I'm an immigrant to the United States. I came when I was 8 years old. And so I decided to study political science as just a way of being more introspective about my background, to learn a little bit more about, the relations between countries and just politics overall. Growing up not having any type of political freedom, I think really influenced my interest, especially in high school. I think it's a funny story to always tell that I kind of went into poli-sci and kind of wanted more about political science because I failed chemistry. So science was not a resort I could kind of go to. But thankfully I had really amazing mentors that through internships kind of influenced my interest in law and of political science. And that's kind of where I am today, why I'm studying what I'm studying, and hopefully as a kind of like Fiorenza, as a way to make a difference in my Latinx community in Miami and overall the United States. I would love to work on policy to better benefit our community.
Thank you for sharing that. And now we have Ramiro Hernandez.
Hi everyone, I'm happy to be here with you all today in community. My name is Ramiro Hernandez. I also go by Ram, either one's fine. So I use he, him pronouns, and I'm currently a third-year student at Swarthmore College, where I am double majoring in peace and conflict studies and education, and then medical anthropology. And similar to Gabriela, I also come from a community college background. I did an associate degree at South Texas College in interdisciplinary sciences, and then I did a minor in medical Spanish at the University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley. Those are the two local institutions back home that really helped sort of spearhead me into where I am now, right? And I think as far as it goes for me, the majors that I'm doing now, right, peace and conflict studies, education, and medical anthropology, I didn't come in wanting to study that. I think, I'm like 2,000 miles away from home. I'm from like South Texas, and right now I'm in Pennsylvania, and right outside of Philly. So coming to like this institution where it's really like, it's filled with like people that come from backgrounds different from me, right? Not everyone comes from low income or first generation backgrounds. So it was very, the first semester that I got here was very, very interesting, right? I think having to navigate this space pretty much alone was a scary experience at the time. But then, through my education classes that I started taking that first semester, and the other, like I started meeting professors that came from backgrounds from similar to me. And so the majors that I have now really helped me reflect and sort of come up with like a framework to help me navigate different spaces that I was not accustomed to and sort of really make an impact in communities that I am now.
Thank you for for sharing that information. I see that you had some challenges. I'd like to see Fiorenza and Gabby share with us what may have been some of your challenges when you went into your schools.
Yeah, I can go first if that's okay for you. Yeah, so I think I'm obviously at the same institution Ram is in. I'm Cuban and I'm part of the Latinx community. I came from a bubble of Hispanic members and just a really big Hispanic community in Miami. And I think coming to Swarthmore, Pennsylvania, where it's a largely white majority community, it was really different to feel representation, especially in the school. I think my first semester, I constantly felt othered. I felt really big lack of belonging, which ultimately kind of like impacted my mental health and my academic performance, as it does for most. And so I think for me, it was really difficult to feel some type of representation. You know, you want to go to a school that makes you feel at home, that you feel peace in, that you can kind of feel like you have a community to help you, you know, develop yourself. And for me, my first semester, we were virtual during COVID. So it was really, really difficult to kind of find those people. But thankfully enough, you know, you start learning that there's little pockets of our communities everywhere. And so I became really good friends with Ram, and he introduced me to LULAC, which I'm so thankful for. He introduced me to the rest of the Latinx community here at Swarthmore. And although there's not a big community of Cubans at Swarthmore, there's a big community of Latinx students who are just wonderful and can all relate. So I think challenges of feeling belonging and feeling like, you know, your voice is valid and your experiences are valid, and making sure that you have something to say and nobody else is going to take that away from you, I think was definitely a challenge that I experienced on campus my first semesters here. It wasn't the case in my previous institution because, you know, I lived in a very big bubble. It was a Hispanic community, so I felt, you know, like I related with everybody. But I think once I came here, it was definitely different, which I'm sure is the case for Fio and Ram as well.
How about you, Fio? Share your experience.
So very similar to Gabby, I also went to a community college in Miami, Florida. Shout out to Miami-Dade College. And I transferred to Swarthmore College where I did my undergrad. And I think as a transfer student, that already puts a lot of obstacles on like in understanding how the school works, navigating each space that I was in, and finding that sense of community and belonging as well was a major obstacle that I had to go through because I didn't know anybody at the school, and I transferred in as a junior. So, you know, it was like I went in to take like my like heavy classes already because I had already taken out like the simpler classes out of the way. So it was very difficult to adapt. But I was able to find a community. I found Ram, who made me feel like I belonged, and then he introduced me to other people as well. So I think that major obstacle of like not finding that space where I'm comfortable being myself. Whereas at MDC, Miami-Dade College, everyone's like me. We share like a similar background as Latinos. And at my institution now at Syracuse, I think I'm sort of like having that same experience now where I'm like the only Latina in my classes, and I'm slowly starting to connect with international students because we have a lot in common. And so I think that's been one of the major obstacles I've faced.
Well, I have to say my hat comes off to you guys because you're living this at this early stage of your life. I started feeling that when I first came back to the United States as an adult, many years ago. And I know what you're talking about. So there's a little disconnect, but those experiences, and it makes you stronger. But at the same time, based on your experiences and the information you shared, which I thank you for sharing, that is, we once again can say, si se puede. And that's very important because we are fierce when it comes to that sort of thing. Si se puede. But even though you went through all those challenges, you continue focusing and making an impact in your respective communities. What has helped you to keep going? And Fio, I'll let you start.
So for one, my mother, who's my pillar, I have to give her props because honestly, everything I am today, my values have come from her. And as an immigrant myself, and my parents, like daughter of immigrants, I have seen what hard work is, and determination and perseverance, and picking yourself up whenever you fall, and never taking no as an answer. So I have to give that to my mom, who always continues to inspire me. But on a professional level, I'm inspired by like community leaders and advocates who are just doing like the groundwork to continue making paving a way for people who are silenced and who are marginalized, and who are advocating for equity and equality for our community. And so they inspire me. I'm inspired by Dr. Martin Luther King, and I find myself connected to him in many ways because I have a dream and I will make that happen, and that's what I'm working towards now.
I am impressed with that, Fiorenza. Thank you for sharing. Ramiro, how about you? What keeps you going?
I think for me, I resonate a lot with what Fiorenza shared. I think for me, the main thing has been really just community, right? And I mean that in the broadest sense. Like it's tough, right? Being away, like 2,000 miles away from home, and having my siblings and even like friends from back home, and even people that are still in high school reach out to me and say like, oh, like you're out there doing it. Like, we're so proud of you. It's hard being away from home. But I find strength in that, right? That I'm here, like setting an example for them and telling them and letting them see that, like I can do it and so can you. And also, yeah, just my parents as well. They've been immensely supportive of everything I've done. I know when I first told them, I'm like, hey, like I want to leave Texas for college. They didn't, I don't think they ever expected, right, their first kid to leave home so far away, but they were immensely supportive. And also just here at SWAT, right? I've connected with professors that come from backgrounds similar to mine, right? That have these experiences, that are navigating these spaces at an academic level, right? Like up there as professors, and but their colleagues are like not from backgrounds similar to theirs. And I think also, like Fiorenza said, just the people that came before us, right? I think last year was the first time ever that this college, that Swarthmore College, had a first generation low income student government president and vice president. And this year, like Ariana and Ariana's not here, right? She's not part of LULAC, but Ariana and I are the second set of first generation low income students to take those positions, right? And so just having that, just setting, like really just breaking the glass ceiling, right? Just breaking all of that and just setting new boundaries for people, and showing that, like, we're powerful and we can get things done, and we can move through these spaces and make them our own, right? But I think above all, it's pretty much just community, just finding people everywhere on campus and abroad, and not on campus, I mean, that are really a part of the community that we all are.
Thank you for sharing, Ramiro. How about you, Gabriela? Share some of your...
So I resonate as well with everything Fiorenza and Ramiro said. So I don't want to like reiterate the parts of my life that kind of are the same as theirs. But I would say that knowledge for knowledge's sake keeps me going. I grew up with my parents really telling me, like, knowledge is the one thing that can never be taken away from you. I'm gonna cry. That's like that's the one thing that you will always have. And it's your intelligence, it's the knowledge you've gained over years. And as immigrants from another country, they didn't know the language, but they had studied over there. And when they came to Miami, they didn't know anything. And I think it really humbles yourself when it humbles you when you see people start from zero after having such a long path towards developing a life, and then starting from zero really makes you think, like, that's crazy. The fact that they were able to do it, and here I am representing them. I think it's something really powerful. So I would say, like, knowledge for knowledge's sake, it's the one thing that nobody can ever take away from you. And I think that being a lifelong learner is something that everybody should strive for, because it just helps you be a better version of yourself. So thinking constantly that there is so much left for me to learn, that there is so much left for me to experience, I think that keeps me going constantly. Yeah.
Oh, I am amazed of the information you guys have shared. I'm almost close to tears, and you guys know I'm pretty tough. So if you can get a tear rolling down here, you guys are awesome. But I've always said you're awesome. I really thank you for sharing that type of information with me. But I did notice one thing: we all have the same common denominator: our parents, our upbringing, the support they've given us all their lives, and that's like. Again, thank you so much for sharing. I see that we all have a common denominator. It's what our parents have taught us, the upbringing that we had, and we're so proud of that upbringing. So we do have that in common. But I do want to ask you one specific question. For those who feel they have imposter syndrome in the spaces that you are in, what kind of advice would you give the other people coming and that will be in that same situation? And any of you can take that question.
I can start this one.
Go ahead.
No, go for it. You got it.
You sure? Okay.
Yeah, you got it.
So yeah, we were just talking about community, and I think knowing that I have such an amazing group of people behind me, supporting me and wanting me to succeed really keeps you going. It makes you think that, you know, you are valued and your experiences are valued and every opinion that you have is valid, because they've led you to where you are today. So when I transferred, kind of like Fiorenza, I spent my first semester really feeling not like I wasn't enough in the spaces I was in, right? So like within school, I just felt, you know, in these classes, I felt so unaware of everything we were talking about. And I constantly found myself doubting whether I was smart enough to take these classes and discuss these like really big topics. And I think when I found my community, when I found people around me that were there to support me, and, you know, in Ramiro's words, your experiences are valid. They have shaped you into the person you are today. And there is no way you can doubt yourself, because you have gotten yourself here, you know, through your hard work. And that says a lot about you, and that says a lot about your character and where you want to go and what experiences you want to have, what change you want to make. You know, if you were able to get here through an application process, what makes you think that you aren't enough? You know, there's always going to be a learning curve, but I think you shouldn't doubt yourself. You know, I think our experiences within the Latinx community, and I think personally as an immigrant, I think those experiences are things that cannot be replicated, and that other people, as much as they might want to read about, they just will never know firsthand.
Or understand, and I think the feelings, those emotions that are attached to all of that. So,
yeah,
Ram,
and I think
give me some perspective on that same topic in a sentence or two. You know, what advice would you give someone who's coming to that same type of situation? Advice on how to overcome those feelings and things like that?
Yeah, I can be brief. I think for me, I kind of realized at one point that people that come from more privileged backgrounds, right, they apply for certain things when they're a lot less qualified than the standards that we have. So like oftentimes we question ourselves to the point where like we don't apply to an opportunity or we don't seek something because we think we're underqualified. We're really like, a lot of other people are like, oh, like I'm qualified, and they've done a lot less than what we have just because of our background, right? Like all the difficulties and obstacles that we had to overcome to get to here to begin with. So that's one thing. I think like in my briefest way, other people are applying when they have like they're less qualified. So why shouldn't you, right? If your experiences qualify you inherently. So. And
I bring it back to again, si se puede. So because we are fierce, like the FTA Tigers, we're fierce. So the other question I have for all of you is, and I'll start with Fio, is as aspiring leaders, well, not aspiring because you're already leaders, and developing professionals, what word of advice would you give to a student who is about to start their college journey as potentially future leaders?
So my word of advice is, it'll be hard, but it's not impossible. And you will grow in many ways that you wouldn't have envisioned. So just push yourself. Don't be afraid of failure, because I believe in failing forward, and that's part of the process of learning. So perfection is not, it's a utopia. We can strive for it, but it won't be. So just fail forward is my first advice. And then my second advice is to build your team. Who do you want on your team that you can go to, who will always be there to assist you, to guide you for guidance. So build your team and fail forward.
So I would summarize that as don't be afraid to ask for help. And because there'll be someone that may show up and help you one way or the other, and not to be afraid to fail, because you fail forward, and failure sometimes is a learning experience as well. Gabby, you have any comments on that, or Ramiro?
Yeah, I think my main advice would be just go into things with an open mind, right? Like, I think many of us have had it ingrained into our education way that we need to have everything figured out. We need to have like everything just outlined, right? And I think sometimes you have to go into college realizing that it's a space for you to really find what you're passionate about, right? You might take a class and you're like, oh my gosh, I never heard of this subject, and suddenly I want to pursue a career in this, right? So I think that's the first one. Go into things with an open mind. And then second, just really look for the resources that your institution has, because many times your institution will have, help with internships, help with summer funding, things that are gonna be of benefit to you in the long run. So those are my two pieces of advice. Look for the resources that are available and go into things with an open mind, and just be open to failure, right? Because I think that's how we learn and grow.
How about you, Gabby? What are your comments on that?
Yeah, I definitely agree with what they both said, but what I would say is it's never too late. I went into college thinking, I'm gonna have to, spend 4 years at a community college, even though I really wanted to leave Florida and I really wanted to leave the state. But I took 2 years of community college to really find myself and to set my boundaries. My grades weren't amazing from high school, but I knew that I always had time to make myself a better person, to do better. And I think it's really important to think that, a lot of people might feel themselves down and they might say, it's just, that time for me has passed. It's a little too late for me to become a leader, or for me to study, or for me to find a passion. And I don't think personally it ever is. Immigrant parents definitely, they definitely show you that it is never too late when they have to go and study English and, take classes that they had never taken before. It is just never too late to pursue something that makes you get up in the morning, that keeps you happy throughout your day, and that at night, ultimately, you feel like you made a difference and you're gonna make change in this world. And that's never too late to find.
And I want to add something. I want to add something really quick, to the whole it's never too late and immigrant parents, right? To speak to that, my mom, she got her associate degree. So I got my associate degree in high school, my senior year, and I graduated from the community college, and she graduated from the same institution a semester before me, right? And I'm getting teared up because she graduated in May, and then in December, I walked the same place that she walked. I walked after her, right? And now a couple years later, she's finishing her bachelor's. So immigrant parents really got it, y'all. And it's never too late.
So you followed her footsteps. What better motivation than that? Following the footsteps of your parents. With that said, we're going to finish the conversation. But before you leave, if you had to send a message to the world right now, as aspiring leaders and professionals, what word of advice would you give the world today? Pio, you want to start?
Yeah, so in the current state of affairs in the world, my message for everyone is be a leader and get vaccinated. Take that step for yourself and for your community to protect not only yourself, but those around you who you love. So that's, yeah.
Thank you, Fiorenza. Ram, what would your message be to the world?
Yeah, I think for one, just don't don't forget your roots, right? Regardless of where you go in the world, remember where you come from, remember your values and the things that raise you to who you are today. And really just like, remember to always give back, right? Like, I think for me, now that I'm at this institution that has a lot of money, almost too much money, I think. I try my best to move the resources that I have access to into the communities that I come from, right? Or the communities that might not have access to the resources that I have, right? So I think those are my two main things. My last words. Remember where you come from. Remember your roots. Center that in all of your work, and always make sure to give or move the resources that you have access to into communities where they might not have access to those same resources.
How about you, Gabby? What's your message?
Yeah, so like I said previously, education is the one thing that will never be taken from you. Your knowledge, your intelligence, that will never be something that's ever taken from you. And so with those words, I would definitely encourage everyone to stay in school, to better yourself through an education, because it can open so many doors and it can provide so many opportunities that you would have never thought feasible before. So I would definitely say, stay in school. Don't be discouraged by, maybe failures in school, because there's always some time to do better, and, be the best version of yourself. And I think education provides an amazing institution and format for you to be able to do that.
Thank you so very much for sharing your thoughts, for being inspiration to many other. As a matter of fact, I see you as role models right now. And I'm going to summarize what you said by telling specifically a message to our community, a nuestra comunidad hispana, que estamos afectados por todo lo que está pasando ahora mismo. I'm going to say, vacúnate, edúcate, y no te olvides de dónde provienes. And for my bilingual people, vaccinate yourself, stay in school, and always give back. Well, Tigers, I want to say, once again, you proved to be fierce, the fierce people that you are. I want to thank you so very much, and I will see you soon.